I have a birthmark on my body, and to look good, I used a tattoo to cover it. But to my surprise, the tattoo shop I found was unreliable and even tattooed a demon for me. From now on, my days will no longer be peaceful. Keywords of the novel. Yaofu no pop-up, Yaofu download the complete collection of the previous TXT, Yaofu read the latest chapters on the previous. Chapter 1. White Snake Tattoo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. White Snake Tattoo is a girl's tattoo, not serious. It's all prejudice. Tattoos have become a trend now, and for the sake of beauty and personality, girls can also go for them. Just make sure to find a professional tattoo shop to get a tattoo. I got into trouble after getting a tattoo just because I was greedy for small gains, and almost lost my life as a result. My name is Lin Shi, I am 20 years old. There is a fist-sized brown birthmark below my collarbone. Because of this birthmark, I dare not wear low-necked clothes in summer. After washing it off twice with laser, the birthmark will grow again and darken in color within 6 months. For this reason, I dare not use laser therapy anymore. After going to college, my roommate saw my birthmark and told me that I could cover it with a tattoo. Her family runs a tattoo shop. She also showed me a carp with a shoulder print on her back. Colorful fish look great on fair skin. I was tempted, asked for the address, and went the next day. Her store is located on a cultural and entertainment street, with a small storefront and only her father. The interior decoration is exquisite and antique, but there is an unpleasant smell in the air. I thought it was the smell of paint, but I didn't pay much attention to it. My classmate's surname is Ian, and when I call her father, I call her Uncle Ian. After hearing that I wanted to cover the birthmark, Uncle Ian took out a box wrapped in animal skin from behind the counter, opened the box, and took out a picture album from it. Uncle Ian flipped through the picture book for me and said, "Classmate, you are a friend of Mylan. To be honest, your birthmark is large in area and dark in color, and ordinary tattoos cannot cover it. Uncle has a special paint that can completely cover your birthmark, but only the pictures in this book. The paintings in the album are all about beasts such as Qinglong, Huofeng, Qilin, Xuanwu, etc. The girl has a blue dragon tattoo, and this scene is moving when you think about it. Uncle Ian, isn't there a pattern suitable for girls' patterns, such as flowers? Blossoming on the chest, the meaning is not good. Take a look at this." Uncle Ian flipped through the picture album to the end. The last picture depicts a white snake, covered in silver scales, dazzling as if reflecting the light of the sun. It's not like a painting, but rather like a real snake coiled on paper. It's beautiful, but the striped snake. I'll give you a free tattoo, but I can't cover the birthmark. I won't ask you for money. Even if I cover it up, Uncle will give you half the price. You're beautiful, so I'll help Uncle promote it at school." Seeing me hesitating, Uncle Ian said again, "Now many little girls have snake tattoos and water snake waist tattoos. Which little girl doesn't want it? You're Mylan's friend, Uncle can't deceive you. I come from a single-parent family and my family is not wealthy. When I heard that I could get such a beautiful snake tattoo at half price, I immediately agreed. I went with him to the back operation room. The operation room is not large, with a bed, tattoo tools, and a table on one side. There is a blank plaque on the table, with nothing written on it. As soon as you enter the operation room, the foul smell becomes even stronger, as if something has decayed, which is very pungent. I covered my nose and said, "Uncle Ian, what does this smell like?" Uncle Ian didn't answer my question as if he hadn't heard it. He made me lie down on the bed, then he walked up to the table and respectfully lit 3 sticks of incense. He murmured a few words in his mouth, but I didn't hear a word clearly. After finishing, he walked over and took my hand. I felt a pain in my fingertips, and when I turned my head, I found that he had pierced my finger with a needle, and blood droplets were dripping into the paint box used for tattoos. Then, he picked up the paint box and looked down at me with a smile, "Classmate, there will be a little pain. Please hold on for a moment. Uncle Ian is very thin, with a sickly layer of bluish-white on his face. With this smile on his face, his eyes narrowed into a slit, his mouth grinned up, as if a gray-haired big mouse. I was frightened by my own thoughts, and upon closer inspection, Uncle Ian was completely engrossed in helping me get a tattoo, with a serious expression on his face. Indeed, I was mistaken. Ian Shuan was very meticulous and took over 2 hours to finish. After tattooing, the white snake lay on its chest, with its silver scales clearly visible and lifelike, but the brown birthmark underneath the white snake was not covered. The whole white snake seemed to be rolling in a mud puddle, very unsightly. There's no cover at all. This is better than not having a pattern. Uncle Ian had a satisfied expression on his face, as if he had tattooed a perfect piece of work. It wasn't until he saw that I was about to cry that he comforted me and said, "Classmate, after tonight, your birthmark will be gone. If it's still there, come find me tomorrow. His shop is here, and he is also my classmate's father." I thought he couldn't run either, so I agreed to wait a day to see. Returning to the dormitory, because the tattoo was unsightly, I didn't show it to anyone else and got into bed early. In the middle of the night, in a daze, I suddenly felt a cold, big hand poking into my pajamas. Wherever he touched me, a layer of goosebumps covered my entire body. I trembled and opened my eyes. The moonlight shone through the window into the house, and with the pale moonlight, I saw a man pressing down on me. The man has an extremely handsome face with 3-dimensional facial features, fair skin, deep black eyes, and an impeccable facial contour. I looked at him and my heart began to beat wildly, not in excitement, but in fear. At such a close distance, I could clearly feel the cold breath he exhaled, and his neck was covered in silver scales. Just like a snake. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Demon Pattern. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Demon Pattern. I was scared to death and quickly covered my eyes with my hand. Is this a dream? Yes, this must be a dream. He grabbed my wrist, pressed my hands onto the bed, and then a gloomy and cold voice came, "Open it." I shook my head. I'm scared to death just by looking at it again. Daxian, please spare me. I have never done anything disrespectful to you. Don't be afraid, I won't harm you. Open your eyes. His gloomy voice carried a terrifying sense of oppression. I didn't want to open my eyes, but my eyes opened involuntarily. A handsome face appeared before my eyes. I stared at him without hesitation. I have to admit, he is really handsome. Unfortunately, it's not a person seeing me staring at him blankly. He curled his lips and smiled lightly. Are you still satisfied with me? This smile is like a blooming snow lotus, cold and gorgeous. The fairy with a clear breeze and a clear moon is nothing more than that. But the next second, what he said made me understand that he is by no means a fairy. I am very satisfied with you. They have chosen a good sacrifice this time. Sacrifice. Am I a sacrifice? I am already a sacrifice, and he said he won't harm me. Tears rolled down the corners of my eyes as I trembled and begged for mercy. Please. Please, let me go. I don't want to die. I can give you many sacrifices, chicken, duck, fish, delicacies, you can choose whatever you want. What do you think I'll eat? As he spoke, his lips pressed against my neck. My cold lips pressed against my neck, and I felt like he would bite me the next second. I was about to collapse, crying and saying, I ate garlic today. The blood smells bad, and I'm not good to eat. Don't bite me. Immortal, please let me go. Whatever you want me to do, don't kill me. Is it really okay to do anything? I agreed eagerly. He chuckled lightly, his deep and sexy voice entering his ears along with a cold breath. That's what you said. Words fall, regardless of whether I agree or not. He tore off my clothes and clouds and rain hit me. Before I passed out, I heard him say in my ear, "My name is Yuchen." I woke up by Ian Milan. I opened my eyes and saw her standing by my bed, her small face flushed. She bent down and took the blanket to cover me. This time, I realized that I was lying in bed without clothes. No wonder Ian Milan's face is so red. I also blushed and wanted to sit up, but as soon as I moved, there was a tearing pain. These pains are telling me that everything from last night was not a dream. I quickly lowered my head, the birthmark was missing, and a silver snake coiled in my chest with dazzling silver scales. Lin Shi, why are you so foolish? I'm asking you a question. Ian Milan called me, what's wrong with you? Tattoos can't have blind tattoos, how can we tattoo a dragon for you? Animal tattoos emphasize integrity, whether it's a dragon or a snake. Although dragons are cultivated by snakes, their lintels are not upright. Before flying to become dragons, they were demons. Lin Shi, you have tattooed a demon on your body. Upon hearing these words, I was dumbfounded and said, isn't this a silver snake? The snake has patterns but no scales, your tattoo has scales but no horns, this is a dragon. No wonder I think this silver snake is more majestic and beautiful than the pictures online. It turns out it has more dragon scales. It's almost Jackie Chan, can't it be more beautiful than snakes? She asked me, the person who tattooed this for you is not very particular. Where exactly did you tattoo it? I looked at her and suddenly wasn't sure if the man from yesterday was her father. She said again, there's a problem with this tattoo. I'll accompany you to wash it. If you like snakes, when my dad comes back from his hometown, I'll have him tattoo you again. I'm sure it looks better than this one. Her father is in his hometown. The man yesterday was indeed not her father. Is it because I found the wrong place, or someone has accused her father of harming me? I don't have time to think about it, all I know is that all the weird things are related to this tattoo. I wish I could go wash immediately, but unfortunately my body is weak and unable to stand up. After resting for half a day, I finally persevered in the afternoon and pulled Ian Milan to find yesterday's store. On the way, I asked Ian Milan, did you hear any strange noise last night? Ian Milan said, no. It was this morning when she heard me make a shy voice that she ran over to wake me up. After listening, I became even more afraid. When men are around at night, Ian Milan and the others can't hear anything. In the morning, when the man left, they could only hear my voice. In this way, even if a man kills me, no one else can hear anything. I trembled with fear and finally arrived at the cultural street. I pulled Ian Milan inside and from a distance, I saw a group of people gathered in front of yesterday's store. I squeezed into the crowd and only then did I see a no-traffic line pulling at the entrance of the store, with police officers shuttling through the store. What's wrong with this store? Ian Milan asked the people around her. The shop owner is dead, someone replied, it's been a week since they both died. My brain hummed. Is the shop owner dead? Who was the one who tattooed me yesterday? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Opening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Opening. A police officer came out carrying the body of the shop owner. A stretcher covered with a white cloth suddenly blew up in front of me as it passed by. The body on the stretcher is the man who tattooed me yesterday. He was thin and his face was deathly green, just like what I saw yesterday. What the hell is going on here? Didn't it mean they all died a week ago? Did a dead person tattoo me yesterday? Lin Shi. Lin Shi. Ian Milan called me, your face looks very ugly. Are you okay? I want to share yesterday's experience with Ian Milan, but on second thought, no normal person would believe such a thing. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. Milan, it seems like I made a mistake. I didn't get a tattoo at this store. We won't look for it anymore. When will your dad come back? Just ask him to help me wash the tattoo. The train tonight will arrive tomorrow afternoon. We still have to wait until tomorrow. What if that man comes to me again tonight, Lin Shi? Why are you crying? What's wrong with you? Seeing Milan's panicked face, I realized that tears had already flowed down my face. I'm scared. I'm really scared. Although I tell you that you have a demon tattoo, you don't have to be scared like this, do you? It's just a tattoo, Milan said, seeing that I'm still afraid. If you really don't trust me, I'll take you to seek a safety talisman. The owner of the charity shop is my dad's old friend, and according to my dad, he has immortality on his body. So all the safety talismans he drew are imbued with immortality, which can protect people's safety. I nodded hurriedly and said, let's go now. The charity hall is located in the center of Haicheng City, in an old residential area. The storefront is a small storefront renovated from a residential building, with a storefront on the outside and people sleeping inside. The three characters of Charity Hall are broken, with signs in tattered condition and funeral wreaths, chrysanthemums, offerings, and other items placed at the entrance. In the store, there are birthday clothes hanging on both sides, and at the bottom is a glass display cabinet with various types of urn boxes inside. Milan led me into the store and shouted loudly, Uncle Lin, we have a customer. Here we go. The curtain behind the counter was lifted and a chubby old man walked out. The chubby old man is in his 70s, wearing a big vest and shorts, a pair of slippers under his feet, and holding a fan in his hand. He has a bald head and a pleated face, which is no different from an ordinary old man. He looked at me up and down, and then his expression suddenly became respectful. Please come with me, he said. I think this old man is quite polite. As soon as I took a step forward, the chubby old man glared at me and said, you two wait in place. In the store, it's just me and Milan, not me or Milan. Who is that called? At this moment, a cold wind suddenly blew past, as if an invisible person had walked past me. My mind buzzed and I almost knelt down on the spot. That thing won't keep following me, will it? The chubby old man quickly confirmed my guess. After about 2 minutes, the chubby old man came out of the room and said to me, you have been taken notice of by the Bao family immortal. He is following you now to make you stand at the entrance and worship him. Standing at the entrance of the hall represents that I have become a rising disciple. I want to worship the Baojia immortal, help people solve various problems, accumulate virtue and do good deeds, and help the Baojia immortal achieve complete success as soon as possible. My hometown is in Liaocheng, northeast China. My grandmother believes in this, so when I was a child, I followed her to see the goddess who invited immortals to dance. To put it bluntly, wearing a mask, jumping, singing lyrics that are all incomprehensible, like a madman. I said, sir, please help me. I don't want to be a disciple of a horse. Before I could finish speaking, a cold wind suddenly hit me and blew around my neck. I took a tight breath and felt like a pair of invisible hands were gripping my neck. Thinking of the man from last night standing in front of me at this moment, pinching my neck. My scalp is numb, and I'm so scared that tears keep rolling down my face. The chubby old man hurriedly said, Grandpa Xian will not come to you for no reason. Your family did something against Grandpa Xian first. Grandpa Xian did not retaliate against your family, but only made you his disciple and worshipped him. This is already kindness to your family. If you want to survive and want your family to be safe, you should immediately agree to Grandpa Xian. The hand gripping my neck exerted a slight force, not hurting me, but it made me truly feel that he existed. I was so scared that my legs became weak, trembling and unable to say I didn't want to. I promise, as long as Grandpa Xian of the immortal family lets go of me, lets go of my family, and asks me to do anything, I will agree. As the words fell, the cold wind wrapped around my neck gently wrapped around my cheek, as if patting my face, and then disappeared. The opening of the hall is led by the disciples of the older generation who already have a hall, and this is called a guide. The chubby old man is naturally my guide. I live in the school dormitory, and there is no incense hall in the dormitory. The chubby old man asked me to set up the incense hall with him first. He tidied up a room, took red paper and a brush, and wrote 4 big characters on the red paper. Mr. Lu San. Then he pasted the red paper onto a wooden plaque and handed it to me, put the plaque inside the house, burn 3 incense sticks, and make 3 noises. Your immortal family's surname is Lu, and he is the younger brother of the head of the Lu family's main hall. He has a high ranking among the Baojia immortals. You should be filial and do more good deeds in the future, so as not to displease the immortal family's grandfather. I nodded and entered the room with the plaque and tribute. After setting up the tablet and offering offerings, I lit 3 incense sticks, knelt down and kowtowed before inserting the offerings into the incense burner. After finishing these, I turned around and ran. I'm the only one in the room, don't be too scared. Before running to the door, my wrist was grabbed by a pair of cold hands. What are you running for? Afraid of me. The voice was deep, cold, and sharp. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Guardian, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Guardian. I heard that he was a bit unhappy, so I quickly gathered my courage and turned to look at him. I knew he was handsome last night, but upon closer inspection now, he is truly handsome. The white smoke emitted from the burning incense lingered around his body. He was wearing a black long-sleeved shirt, pants of the same color, and leather shoes. Standing in the midst of the smoke, he was tall and handsome, resembling a mortal immortal. Faced with such a handsome face, the fear in my heart has eased a lot. Thinking of having a long-term relationship with him in the future, I quickly smiled and flattered, Grandpa Xian, I will do more good deeds in the future to help you ascend to immortality as soon as possible. Yu Chen lazily glanced at me and said, as long as I achieve good results in my cultivation, I will write off my grudges with your family. I have no idea what his grievances are, so I just wanted to call my dad and ask. Furthermore, I really don't want to be with someone who controls my life and death, so I said, Grandpa Xian, can you come out at night? Don't let the sunshine consume your energy, go back and rest. I'll just step back and not disturb your rest. You treat me like a ghost. Yu Chen's eyes turned cold. I was so scared that I trembled, and my heart was filled with tears. I just said I can't stay any longer. Saying the wrong thing carries the risk of losing my life. This is truly a high-risk profession. Lin Shi, you are my younger brother Ma, and I won't harm you. However, if you treat me like those dirty things again, I don't mind making you like them. Yu Chen pinched my chin, forcefully lifted my head, and asked me to face him. He said coldly, listen clearly, I'm not afraid of the sun. But the immortal family cannot appear in front of people casually, so I won't let ordinary people see you easily. Now you are my younger brother Ma, you are different from ordinary people, so you can naturally see me at any time. I nodded hastily, showing a pleasing smile and said, Grandpa Xian, I don't mean to disrespect you. I just became a newly appointed disciple and don't understand many things. Don't have the same view as me. Yu Chen gave me a cold glance, released me, and turned to walk outside. Walking to the door, he saw me still standing in place. He frowned and coldly ordered, follow me. I rubbed my chin and quickly chased over. Stepping out of the inner room, the chubby old man and Yin Milan were nowhere to be found, as there was no one in the shop. Yu Chen walked straight outside the store, and I could only keep up, where are we going? Go help you solve the problem. I didn't understand, what does that mean? Isn't he my trouble? He glanced at me with an impatient expression, but still answered, there's a problem with your tattoo. Of course I know this. If there were no problems, how could I inexplicably become his disciple? But I dare not say that. After thinking for a moment, I said, the person who tattooed me died. The police said he has been dead for a week, but I saw him yesterday. Did I really see a ghost yesterday? Yu Chen didn't answer me, but said, "Stop a car and go to Hongshin Community." "What are you doing there?" Yu Chen glanced at me horizontally, as if she had used up all her patience, with a clear displeasure in her cold eyes. Others can't see him, otherwise he probably wouldn't even say a word to me. He had already taken a taxi and left. I don't know if he is talkative or simply dislikes me for not wanting to talk to me. Seeing his cold expression, I dare not speak to him anymore. I raised my hand and stopped a taxi to go to the Red Heart Community. Hongshin Community is an old community with 6 floors. Due to the need for demolition, most residents have moved out, leaving the entire community empty. After getting off the car, I don't know if it's due to the vastness of space here. In the scorching summer, I actually feel the chill blowing from my body. I felt uneasy in my heart and instinctively hid behind Yu Chen. Yu Chen glanced at me and said, "Look at your remarkable achievements. When you come out with me, be brave and don't hold me back, otherwise it will ruin my business. I can't spare you." To help people solve problems, as the jargon goes, is to take on business. After solving a problem, becoming a horse immortal will add a merit. Breaking down his business is equivalent to losing his credit. I rolled my eyes. "It's not that I want to be your disciple. You despise me, but don't bother me." After passing through several rows of old buildings, Yu Chen took me to a building with a spiritual hall in front of its door. The funeral hall is placed on the open space in front of the building, with a simple layout. There is a black coffin with several wreaths placed on both sides. A fire basin is placed in front of the coffin, and 4 yellow cushions are placed in front of the fire basin. Not even the spiritual tent and the eternal light, the entire spiritual hall looks very shabby. At this moment, a fat, middle-aged man in his 40s sat on a yellow mat dressed in mourning clothes, smoking a cigarette in his mouth, playing with his phone with one hand, and throwing paper money into the brazier with the other. The careless appearance is simply disrespectful to the dead. Yu Chen came here just to meet this person. "You know him?" Before I could finish asking, I was stunned. A middle-aged woman who was also dressed in mourning walked out of the building holding a posthumous photo. The black and white photo showed a skinny little old man. This little old man is the owner of the tattoo shop who helped me get a tattoo yesterday. The little old man died for a week. In the hot summer, not only did his body not rot, but I also saw him yesterday, and this incident was eerie in every way. Yu Chen came here to really help me solve the trouble. A warm current flowed through my heart, and suddenly I felt that having a fairy on my body was also good. "Go tell them that you will be guarding tonight." What? I couldn't believe it, and the warmth in my heart instantly turned into ice, piercing my heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Black Cat Scare. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Black Cats Scare. My shout caught the attention of the middle-aged man and woman. I quickly turned my back to them and whispered to Yu Chen, "Are you joking? Do you think I'm teasing you?" Yu Chen had a cold face and a pair of icy black eyes staring at me. "Do you want me to help you with your body?" He has a strong aura, and even if a question comes out of his mouth, it's like a threat. I quickly shook my head. Ordinary people can't see Yu Chen, which makes it convenient for him to get on my body at any time. But after getting on, he won't stay on me for the whole night. "Isn't it still me who will be guarding tonight?" "That, I know what he said. I have to listen, whether I listen or not." I sighed obediently and asked, "You have to let me know the reason, right? I am not related to the deceased, why should I help him keep watch? He died suddenly in the store, with resentment in his heart. He was startled by the black cat, and then you appeared again. He inhaled the living person's yang energy and even stained your blood. Tonight is his 7th birthday, the time when his yin energy is the heaviest. If left unchecked, he will definitely turn into a corpse." I suddenly remembered that when I went to the store yesterday, the little old man was lying on the lounge chair. I thought he was asleep, so I walked over and called him a few times. It should be at this moment that he inhaled my yang energy and woke up. The more I thought about it, the more scared I became. Trembling, I asked, he's turned into a corpse. Will he kill me? What do you think? Yu Qin stared at me with a smile on his face and said without a smile, it was you who made him turn into a corpse. He can't settle down in the soil. There is a head of injustice and a debt, and the first person he killed was you. Yu Chen looked like he was watching a good show, as if even if I had been killed by a ghost, he wouldn't care about me. There is only one way to survive now, I'll go wake up. I walked to the funeral hall and looked at the middle-aged man. Before I could speak, tears fell down my face. The middle-aged man was surprised and said, "Little girl, do you know my dad?" If she didn't know her, could she cry so sadly? The middle-aged woman glanced at the man. Upon hearing these words, I cried even harder. I'm not sad, I'm really scared. While crying, I still hadn't forgotten the main matter and said to the two people, uncle and auntie, I have received the favor of my grandfather. My family is poor and cannot afford college. It was my grandfather who helped me pay my tuition. I came to thank my grandfather on purpose, but I didn't expect him to. I cried uncontrollably. This sad scene even made me believe the lies I had told myself. The middle-aged woman pursed her lips and said, I just said this old man is hiding money. He would rather give the money to someone else than me. How could I have such a picky father? The middle-aged man got up from the ground and looked at me. Do you have money now? If you don't, just write an IOU and pay the money back as soon as possible. My dad is old and confused. I can sue you for fraud with his money. Don't think about defaulting on your debts. I stayed for a while, but I didn't expect these two people to be unfilial and still gnaw on old age. I wiped my tears and said, I will repay the money. Also, Grandpa is my benefactor, and I want to wake up for him tonight. If you want to repay me, we can't help but give you this opportunity. You keep it. The woman seemed to be waiting for me to say so. As soon as I finished speaking, she quickly took off her filial piety robe and put it in my hand. I'll come back early tomorrow morning. Xiaoling, the middle-aged man grabbed the woman, if you leave now, people will gossip. Xiaoling smiled nonchalantly and said, I don't care. If you want to pretend filial piety, you can stay. After speaking, she shook off the man's hand and left. The man caught up with her and said, Lu Xiaoling, don't think I don't know what you're up to. Are you trying to sell the old man's house while I'm on my guard? I'll tell you, there's no door either. The water thrown out by the married daughter, you're that basin of water. You want to take the old man's money separately. Oh my goodness. This room fee is at least half of mine. The two of them argued and walked away. The request for a wake went smoothly, but I didn't feel the same way in my heart. This woman is not the daughter-in-law of the old man, but actually a daughter. This one son and one daughter, it's not something either. How could there be such a person? I felt resentful in my heart. They will have their own retribution. Yu Chen walked over and said to me, there's not much time, let's set up the spiritual hall first. Yu Chen said, tonight we need to pay attention to three things. Firstly, the eternal light cannot be extinguished. 2. The fragrance of the incense burner cannot be broken. 3. It is also the most important thing, never let the black cat startle the corpse again. I don't know if there are black cats around here, but when I arrived, I had already seen many stray cats. In order to prevent cats from approaching the body, it is necessary to build a mourning shed. And you also have to buy Changming lamps, incense burners, and incense burners. Fortunately, the chubby old man runs a funeral parlor, otherwise as a poor student, I wouldn't have the money to decorate these things. I called Ian Milan and asked for the phone number of the chubby old man. By the way, I told Ian Milan that I won't go back to the dormitory tonight. Then, I called the chubby old man again and said what I wanted. In less than half an hour, the chubby old man came with the workers. After rearranging the funeral hall, the chubby old man asked me, "Girl, are you afraid? Why don't I stay with you?" Upon hearing these words, I was deeply moved. Just as I was about to nod, I heard Yu-Chen coldly say, "No need." "Yes, then I'll leave first." As I watched the chubby old man leave, my anger couldn't be suppressed after being bullied all afternoon. I looked at Yu-Chen and said, "He stayed with me, not with you. What right do you have to refuse for me?" Seeing me getting angry, Yu-Chen didn't get angry. Instead, he walked up to me and reached out to hold my face. He lowered his head and looked down at me. "Having me here is enough." I am very close to him, so close that I can clearly see the small fuzz on his face. The air suddenly became ambiguous, my cheeks burned, and my heart accelerated uncontrollably. At this point, meow, a cat cry suddenly came out from the spiritual tent. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Soul Sending. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Soul Sending. My heart trembled suddenly. How could there be a cat barking in the spiritual tent? Setting up a mourning shed is to separate cats from corpses, not to keep them together. I thought the worker accidentally locked the cat inside while building the spiritual tent, which scared me to push Yu-Chen away and turn around to run into the tent. Due to time constraints, the spiritual tent was not very large. A black coffin was placed in the middle, surrounded by wreaths, with only a passage for passing people left next to it. In front of the coffin was an eternal light, incense burner, and brazier. The place is not big, you can see everything at a glance. There are no cats at all. I'm afraid I might overlook it, so I searched carefully and still didn't find anything. I heard the cats meow clearly, I said to Yu-Chen. Did I hear it wrong? Yu-Chen glanced at me and said coldly, "Open the coffin." Ah! I was stunned for a moment. The lid of the coffin has been covering all the time, and the cat definitely can't run in. There's no need to open the coffin. Before I could finish speaking, Yu-Chen picked up a Changming lamp and stuffed it into my hand. Take it. After opening the coffin, use candlelight to illuminate the head of the deceased. Although it is called a Changming lamp, it is not an electric lamp at all, it is just a thick white candle. When Yu-Chen handed it to me, the flame of the candle was swaying left and right in the wind. I was afraid that the candle would go out, so I quickly took it over, holding the candle in one hand and blocking the flames with the other. When I was doing these things, Yu-Chen had already walked to the side of the black coffin. He looked at me and although he didn't say anything, I understood that he was urging me over. I have a feeling of being unable to get off while riding a tiger, so I walked over with a stiff face. Just as he passed by, he heard a click, and the coffin lid was pushed open by Yu-Chen with a gap of about 20 centimeters, which happened to expose the head of the deceased. I know I shouldn't have looked, but I was really curious. When I handed the candle into the coffin, I also glanced inside. This glance almost scared me to death. The little old man lay with his eyes closed, his head shrunk like water, his skin tightly pressed against the bones, his cheeks sunken, his mouth and nose bulging, and a small layer of white hair growing around his ears. It looks like a big mouse. I trembled with fear, and the candle fell from my hand. I hurriedly reached out to grab it. At this moment, a big hand grabbed the candle, put it in my hand, and firmly grasped my hand. "Take it." His hands were cold, but for some reason, being held tightly by him gave me a sense of peace of mind, and the fear in my heart dissipated quite a bit. I held the candle tightly and said, "I have it." Upon hearing what I said, Yu-Chen finally let go of his hand. I dare not look into the coffin anymore, I turned my head to look elsewhere. In the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of Yu-Chen reaching into the coffin, as if taking out something. Afterwards, he raised his hand and pushed the lid of the coffin back on. "Go and offer incense," said Yu-Chen. I exclaimed, set up the Changming lamp in my hand, lit 3 sticks of incense, and plunged it into the incense burner. White smoke drifted up, and to my surprise, inside the incense burner, 2 incense sticks did not burn, while 1 incense stick burned extremely quickly. 2 long and 1 short. Although I don't understand what this means, I also know that such a situation is not a good thing. I hid behind Yu-Chen and said, "Why is Xiang like this?" Yu-Chen ignored me, but stared in the direction of the coffin and shouted sternly, "Are you still not leaving?" I followed Yu-Chen's gaze and saw nothing but the coffin. But it was obvious that Yu-Chen was talking to someone. A terrible idea suddenly came to my mind. Is he there? Do you want to see him? Yu-Chen turned his head to look at me. I quickly shook my head, but before I could say a word, I didn't want to feel my body suddenly light up. The whole person seemed to be squeezed into a dark small room with a window where one could see what was happening outside, but the body was completely at my mercy. This is Yu-Chen getting on my body. After he got on me, a thin little old man appeared on the previously empty black coffin. The little old man stood on the coffin board, nodding his toes, with sharp-mouthed monkey cheeks and a mouse-like face. A pair of sparkling green eyes stared straight at me. Oh my God! If it weren't for Yu-Chen controlling my body, I would probably have been scared unconscious by this time. "You're already dead, you shouldn't stay in the world anymore. Take the time to turn around and reincarnate," said Yu-Chen's voice from my mouth. The little old man stared at me and let out a whimper, similar to the sound made by a wild beast when angry. Yu-Chen continued, "I came to find you to let you go. If you are stubborn, I will make you lose your soul now." The little old man seemed scared and took a step back, then turned around and ran. Yu-Chen raised his hand and a strong wind blew out of my palm, directly hitting the little old man to the ground. He controlled my body and walked over. "What can you do if you kill your children? Once you transform into a fierce ghost and kill someone, Een will not let you go. Do you want to be a lonely and wild ghost, or do you want to be completely scared? You are already dead, all the grievances in this life are gone. Moreover, even if I am here, you can transform into a fierce ghost and not harm anyone." The little old man was stunned for a moment, but later he burst into tears like a child. The ghost has no tears, his crying is just a dry howl. True ghost crying, gloomy and piercing, not to mention too unpleasant. After howling for a long time, the little old man finally stopped. He got up, knelt down, kowtowed respectfully to me 3 times, then looked up at me with a pleading light in his green eyes. Yu-Chen looked at him and after a moment of silence, he coldly said, "They didn't end well." Upon hearing this, the little old man smiled and kowtowed 3 more heads, then his body slowly became transparent and eventually disappeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Playing coquettish. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Playing coquettish. I feel very tired, just like doing a heavy physical job. I couldn't stand at all, my body was weak and I fell to the ground. Yu-Chen reached out and pulled me into his arms. His embrace was very cold, not the temperature that humans should have, but I didn't think it was scary at all. At this moment, he is even warmer in my heart than some humans. Even if the little old man turns into a fierce ghost, he can still fight. He has the ability to make the little old man's soul run wild. But he didn't do that. He came here to let the little old man let go of his resentment and reincarnate. He didn't save a life, he saved a soul, saved the life of this person. He is an immortal family with a compassionate heart. As I looked at him, a wave of admiration suddenly rose in my heart. Grandpa Xian, you are so kind that you will surely achieve the right results soon and become a powerful immortal in the world. Yu-Chen placed me on a yellow mat and showed no response to my flattery. "Incense, burn paper, and be vigilant," he said. I originally wanted to flatter, but Yu-Chen was happy, so I suggested leaving here. But who knew, before I could tell him to leave, he told me to continue guarding. I said, "He has been reincarnated and reincarnated, am I still guarding?" Corpse transformation is the emergence of a corpse, a change in the corpse. His soul has been reincarnated, and his body is still here. Yu Chen said, don't be lazy, otherwise the corpse transformation will result in you dying the first time. Really? You didn't lie to me. Yu Chen gave me a cold glance and ignored me. I suspect he is deceiving me, but I have no evidence. I am still hesitant and don't want to die, so I dare not disobey his words. I dragged my tired body, knelt properly, and put on 3 sticks of incense. After seeing the incense burn naturally, I breathed a sigh of relief and began to burn paper and watch the night. The first half of the night was fine. As soon as I heard the meow of a cat, I felt like facing a big enemy and my whole body became nervous. But in the latter half of the night, I can't bear it anymore. I ran for another day today and my stamina was already exhausted. I struggled for a while, but in the end, I couldn't hold on and fell asleep in a daze. When I wake up again, I am awakened by the sound of words. I opened my eyes and found myself lying on the ground, with my head resting on Yu Chen's thigh. As soon as I opened my eyes and saw such a handsome face, I had an unreal feeling of being in a dream. Yu Chen sat on a yellow mat, throwing paper money into the brazier. When he saw me awake, he reached out and pushed me. I just woke up, feeling lazy and unable to remember. I leaned over and hugged Yu Chen's waist, let me lie down for a while longer. Speaking out loud, I realized how much I looked like being spoiled at this moment. I blushed with embarrassment and quickly got up from Yu Chen. Yu Chen's back was also a bit stiff, he looked at me. It wasn't until I sat down on the yellow mat that he made a move and suddenly leaned over and approached me. He is 1.85 meters tall by sight, while I am only 1.6 meters tall. Even when sitting, he is still much taller than me. He leaned over and the shadow cast by his tall body completely enveloped me. My heart was racing, and just as I was about to ask him what he wanted to do, my lips suddenly cooled. Although on the first night we met him, we both did what we should have done. But that night was like a dream to me, and the whole process was confusing. And now, I can clearly feel him kissing me. I widened my eyes and saw him in front of me. With my eyes closed, the cold color between my eyebrows faded, revealing tenderness and obsession. Thinking of him because of me, I suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction in my heart, and even thoughts of cooperating with him came to mind. I thought and did the same. But at this moment, Yu Chen suddenly let go of me. He pulled my arm off him, then got up and tidied up his clothes. He had a cold and handsome expression, as handsome as a banished fairy, unaffected by the kiss just now. But I can't do it. This feeling is like someone stuffed a candy into my mouth, and as soon as I tasted the sweetness, the person took it away. I stood up and wanted to continue kissing him, but I felt embarrassed to take the initiative. At this moment, the curtain of the spiritual tent was lifted, and the middle-aged men and women who left yesterday walked in one by one. I don't want others to find me embarrassed, and I also don't like these siblings. When I saw them come in, I didn't even say hello and turned around and walked out. I don't want to talk to them, but they don't let me go. As I walked out of the spiritual tent, the middle-aged man followed me and said, "Did you decorate the spiritual hall? How much did it cost?" I thought he was going to give me money, and said, "This is a token of my gratitude to Grandpa." "Don't give me money." "Who said they're going to give you money?" "What kind of dream?" The man said, "If you have money to decorate the funeral hall, then you should also have money to pay off your debts and repay the money you owe my dad." I feel angry in my heart. Don't say I don't owe the old man money. Even if I really owe him, I wouldn't give the money to such a scumbag. I said, "The money has been used to decorate the funeral hall. The money was lent to me by my grandfather, and I will naturally repay him as well. The money has already been used on my grandfather, and I have paid it off. Damn it. You want to default, don't you?" The man stared with a fierce expression. There is a strong sense that if I don't repay the money today, I won't be able to leave. The middle-aged woman also followed suit and said, "Which school are you from?" Believe it or not, I'll go to your school and find your school leaders. If you don't pay back, I'll make it impossible for you to even attend school. I clenched my fists in anger and stared at the shameless siblings. I suddenly regretted stopping the old man. At this moment, a cat's cry suddenly came from the spiritual tent, which was desolate and particularly piercing in the quiet morning. Then a gust of wind rushed out of the spiritual tent. My heart skipped a beat. Has the corpse changed? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Printing yellow tables. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Printing yellow tables. The strong wind is raging, and dust is flying. The sun above was obscured by dark clouds, and the surroundings suddenly darkened. I was so scared that I quickly hugged Yuchen's arm and said, "Grandpa Xian, has the corpse changed?" As soon as I finished speaking, I heard a middle-aged man scream in agony, "Ah! Ghost! There's a ghost! Dad, I know I was wrong, I was really wrong. Please let me go." The woman knelt on the ground, bowing in fear. "Dad! Dad, don't come over. Don't. Ah!" With a scream, the woman rolled her eyes and fainted. The man's face turned pale, and after trembling in place for a while, he suddenly shouted and turned to run outside the community. After the man ran away, the wind stopped. From beginning to end, I only saw them go crazy and didn't even see ghosts. However, Yuchen didn't touch me, so it's normal for me not to see ghosts. I hugged Yuchen's arm tightly and asked again, "Did the corpse change?" Yuchen glanced at me and said, "It's already dawn, what else is there to turn into?" Just now. I instantly realized that it must be Yuchen teaching these two people a lesson. I also feel that these siblings owe a lesson. Yuchen did the right thing. So he said, "Grandpa of the immortal family, was it your spell that scared them just now? I am your disciple on horseback. Can I learn this kind of spell? When I encounter someone I dislike again, I will use ghosts to scare them." "Sure," Yuchen said, "but it's not easy for ordinary people to practice spells, and they may not be able to learn them in their lifetime. You are my outgoing disciple, and it will be much easier for you to absorb my immortal energy." Upon hearing these words, I immediately asked excitedly, "How do you smoke?" So, Yuchen suddenly leaned down, his tall body pressing down. He tilted his head slightly, his lips getting closer and closer to me. I froze in place and gulped down my saliva. Just as our lips were about to stick together, he suddenly stopped and said, "Let's go back." After speaking, he got up and turned to walk outside the community. My heart was pounding wildly, and it took me a long time to come back to my senses. Why stop? Why didn't he kiss it off? Startled to realize that I was regretting the kiss, I quickly patted my face with my hand to calm myself down. What's wrong with me? No matter how handsome he is not human. How could I want to get close to him? Take a taxi back to the charity hall. Seeing Yuchen and I coming, the chubby old man came out from behind the counter and respectfully smiled. "Grandpa Xian has worked hard." Yuchen asked, "Are everything ready?" The chubby old man nodded and said, "Yes, I prepared it for Grandpa Xian early in the morning." Upon hearing this, Yuchen lifted his foot and entered the room where the incense hall was set up. I tugged at the chubby old man's arm and said, "Uncle Lin, what have you prepared?" "You'll know when you go in." The chubby old man paused and said to me nervously, "Girl, remember to keep your original intention." What? I was puzzled. "Uncle Lin, what do you mean?" The chubby old man shook his head and said, "It's not very interesting. You go in quickly." I gave the chubby old man a strange glance, then turned around and walked into the inner room. Inside, in addition to offering tribute and incense, there is also a yellow paper spread on the incense table, with pens and ink placed next to it. Yuchen stood in front of the incense table, pointed to the yellow paper, and said to me, "This is called playing the yellow watch. When I come back, I will write down the things I have solved on it and burn it for the immortals above to know." After confirming whether the reported matter is true, the upper immortal will record this merit for Ma Xian. The so-called accumulation of virtues and doing good deeds is like accumulating one by one, and once the merits are completed and opportunities arise, one can ascend to immortality. I understand the meaning. It is, must I write with a brush? Yu Chen nodded. I had no choice but to grit my teeth and pick up a brush. Before I could even finish, my hands began to shake. After writing, as expected, the characters were as ugly as those crawled out by a dog. Yu Chen frowned and said, "Aren't you a student? You can't write." "Of course I can write, I just can't use a brush." I inexplicably didn't want to be looked down upon by him, so I quickly explained, "Can I exchange it for a ballpoint pen?" Before I could finish speaking, Yu Chen stood behind me, holding the incense table with one hand and my hand holding the brush with the other. He leaned forward slightly, his side face almost touching mine. His breath scraped across my face. The brush was writing beautiful words under his hand, and he looked at the table. I secretly looked up at him. Skin is porcelain white, pure and flawless, with picturesque eyebrows and eyes. My gaze slid from his eyes to his nose, and finally settled on his slightly pale lips. At this moment, Yu Chen seemed to notice that I had been staring at him all along. He turned his head to me, his lips slightly parted, and as he was about to speak, I suddenly pounced on him. Yu Chen's lips lightly curved, revealing a smile. Later, he took the initiative. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Car Accidents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Car Accidents. After a slight pain, the tingling sensation spread. My body trembled and my brain regained some rationality. I just want to kiss him, I don't want to do such a thing, and the chubby old man is still outside. As if realizing what I was worried about, Yu Chen said, "He's out, only the two of us here." That's what makes me even more shy. Does the chubby old man know we're going to do this, so he deliberately left to make room for both of us? I was embarrassed to continue, but Yu Chen held on to my waist arrogantly. He looked down at me, his deep black eyes flickering with emotions that I couldn't understand. "You know how hard I had to endure, now that you take the initiative, then all of this is up to you." He spoke with a fierce force, as if he had made some decision. "How is it?" After finishing, I softened in his arms and he asked me, "Are you comfortable?" I was so tired that I couldn't even move a finger, so I gave him a shy and angry look. "Are you angry?" Yu Chen said, "Are you dissatisfied? Let's do it again." "No, no need." I quickly shouted, "I'm very satisfied, you're great." I was complimenting him, but when I thought of something to do, I blushed again and said, I feel very comfortable. This is the truth, my face is even redder. From now on, I will make you comfortable every day." Yu Chen curled her lips and smiled contentedly. He took me out of the incense hall and went to another room. In the room, there were brand new bedding on the bed, or something bright red with the words of happiness, no need to guess. At first glance, it was clear that this must have been prepared by the chubby old man for me and Yu Chen. Thinking that the chubby old man knew that Yu Chen and I had this kind of relationship, he even prepared an occasion for us. I'm even more embarrassed. Yu Chen lay beside me, curling up a strand of my black hair and playing with it in her hand. The hair was entangled between his fair and slender fingers, entwined and enveloped, revealing an indescribable sensuality. He was only playing with my hair, but my body felt as if he was playing with some sensitive area. I quickly averted my gaze and dared not look at him again. This man is too dangerous. At this moment, Yu Chen suddenly said, "It's too inconvenient to live in someone else's house. After you wake up, we'll go find a house." It's easy to say, as a poor student, how can I afford to rent a house in the provincial capital? I was so tired that I ignored what he said and closed my eyes, losing consciousness. When I woke up again, I was awakened by my phone. I closed my eyes, followed the sound of my phone, and pressed the answer button. Lin Shi, where are you? Ian Milan's shout came from the receiver. The next class is Meng Po's class. Have you come to school yet? Meng Po is the nickname of Professor Meng in our department. Her surname is Meng and she is particularly strict. There was once a senior who excelled in both character and education, but due to missing one class, she gave her a very low evaluation. From then on, that senior was no longer eligible for the school scholarship, and even the spot for foreign exchange students was taken by someone else. It's not an exaggeration to say that Meng Po is the devil in the hearts of our students. I instantly woke up, sat up, and glanced at the time. It was 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. The class starts at 2 o'clock and there is still half an hour left. Milan, I'm going to school now. After speaking, I hung up the phone. I was the only one in the room, and I didn't care where Yu Chen went. I quickly got dressed and ran out of bed. The chubby old man was looking at the shop outside and saw me running out. He called me, "Girl, third master asked you to wait here for him to come back." I shouted while running, "Wait a minute, I have class this afternoon and I'm going to be late." "Uncle Lin, I'll leave first." "You can't leave, you have to wait for the third master to come with you, otherwise it's dangerous." I have already run far and didn't hear what the chubby old man said behind me. I took a taxi on the roadside and rushed to school. Half an hour is enough time for me to go to school. Unfortunately, we encountered a car accident on the road, causing traffic congestion. As the turtle drove past the scene of the car accident, I couldn't help but take a deep breath and say, how could it have been like this? Two sports cars collided with each other, with parts scattered all over the road. The front ends of both cars were knocked out, and the airbags in the drivers kept popped up. There were wet blood stains on both the road and the car. I didn't see anyone. It seems that they have been taken to the hospital, and there are traffic police on site directing traffic. If we hit like this, we definitely won't have anyone left. The taxi driver said, those who can afford to drive this kind of car are all wealthy people, but what about having money? Yan Wangye doesn't care if you have money when he accepts people. So, it's important to be alive. I think what the driver said is very correct. Life is the most important. I became Yu Chen's disciple just to survive, isn't it? When I think of Yu Chen, I think of what he said about his grudges and grievances with my family. But I have no idea what my family has done to him, so I decided to call my dad after class to ask. Due to a car accident and traffic jam, it was already 2 p.m. when I arrived at school. I just hope that Meng Po can spare me this time for the sake of not being late for a long time. I got off the car and ran towards the teaching building. As soon as I ran into the teaching building, I felt like my leg had kicked something. I stumbled and fell flat on the ground. The palm is burning and painful, probably because it has worn through the skin. My knees and elbows were also hit hard. I endured the pain and looked behind me to see what I had kicked. But there's nothing. There are many classmates passing by, but the place where I tripped just now is deserted. A terrible idea came to my mind, but then I realized it was impossible. This is the school, where students are all full of youthful vigor and vitality. How could dirty things possibly appear here? I think I was scared by last night's guardian, that's why I became suspicious. I shook my head, stopped my wild thoughts, got up from the ground, and limped towards the classroom. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Dreaming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Dreaming. Perhaps it was because of the injuries on my body that Meng Po didn't embarrass me. She said, let's not make an exception now, and then let me go back to my seat. I sat next to Ian Milan, exhausted and panting heavily. Ian Milan handed me the book and whispered, Meng Po is in a good mood today. You're lucky. I smiled and said, thank you for calling me, otherwise I would definitely skip class today. Just be polite to me. Ian Milan raised her eyebrows and smiled vaguely. To be honest, who were you with last night? I was with the body last night. To be honest, I couldn't tell a lie casually. I went to the neighboring art institute. I said a few of my high school classmates were admitted to the neighboring art college, and because they were from the same hometown, we often played together. Mylan also knows about this matter. I thought if she said that, she wouldn't ask further questions. As a result, her eyes widened and she asked me, full of gossip, "Did you sleep with your male god?" She mentioned my boyfriend as one of my high school male classmates. I started having a crush on him in my sophomore year and confessed my feelings when I wanted to get into college. However, as soon as I got into college, he found a girlfriend. I used to feel heartbroken when I mentioned him. But now, when I mention him again, I feel nothing at all. When I heard Mylan mention the word male god, the first thing that came to my mind was actually Yuchen's face. I was surprised. I won't fall in love with that snake, will I? Hey. Mylan touched me with her arm and smiled as she saw me freeze. Look at the strawberries around your neck. Did you have a lot of fun last night? My face instantly turned red and I reached out to cover my neck. There was no mirror in the chubby old man's room, and I was in a hurry to come to school without even noticing any marks on my body. It's not enough to torment me to death, it's still leaving marks on me. I am angry and shy. After class, I borrowed a concealer from Mylan and ran to the bathroom to cover the kiss marks. It's no wonder Mylan laughed at me. I saw the marks on my neck through the mirror, and I felt like I could only describe it as intense. There are red marks on both sides of the neck, and when the collar is slightly turned back, you can still see the tooth marks left on the back of the neck. Undoubtedly a beast, so fond of biting people. I covered up while cursing in my heart. The concealer can't cover all the traces, but it can't be seen without looking carefully. After that, I put away the concealer and walked out. When I left the bathroom door, I stumbled over something again. This time I was on guard and didn't fall. I stumbled a few steps forward, but when I stood firm, I immediately turned back to look. Still empty. Once was an accident, those two. I felt a chill on my back and ran back to the classroom. There were no classes left, and many students left the classroom, leaving only a few for self-study. Mylan was waiting for me in her seat. When I came back, she asked, "Lin Shi, my dad is back. Do you still wash your tattoo?" I shook my head. I have become Yuchen's rising disciple, it doesn't matter whether this tattoo is washed or not. What's wrong? Are you very hot? Why are you sweating so much? Mylan asked me with concern. I'm not hot, I'm sweating cold, scared. I looked at Mylan, calmed down, and said, "Mylan, you go back to the dormitory first. I suddenly remembered that I have something else to do and won't leave with you. I want to call Yuchen over and let him see if I have encountered a ghost. If it's really a ghost, let Yuchen solve it. Don't let the ghost stay here and harm people." Mylan confirmed repeatedly that I was okay before leaving. I don't know where Yuchen has gone, nor do I know how to call him out. I just want to give the chubby old man a call. Take out my phone. Before dialing, my dad's call came in. She answered the phone, and my grandmother's voice came through. She asked anxiously, to be honest with my grandmother, have you encountered strange things during this time? As soon as I spoke, I asked, did Grandma know anything? But I just became a rising disciple and haven't had a chance to tell my family yet. How did my grandmother know? I think it's strange, but I still told the truth about Yuchen, and of course, I concealed the fact that I had already slept with Yuchen. After speaking, I asked my grandmother, Grandma, how do you know I've encountered something strange? It was the third grandmother who entrusted her grandmother with a dream. The third grandmother said, you encountered trouble and got entangled. I didn't expect this trouble to be a good thing. The grandmother seemed to cry, her voice choked up, and after a while, she continued, in the evening, you have become the third grandfather's disciple. You must listen to the third grandfather and be filial to him. This is to make amends for our family. Use the word redemption. I thought of Yuchen's grievances and asked, Grandma, what sin should I redeem? What has our family done to offend Yuchen? It was Grandma who did it, Grandma's voice filled with self-blame. It was Grandma who made a big mistake. At night, Grandma never told you that when Grandma was young, she also had immortals on her body. Grandma said that the fairy on her back then was the third granddaughter of the Lu family, also known as Yuchen's daughter. Law. The status of the disciples on horseback is only related to the generation of the great immortal on their body, regardless of whether they have entered or not. The head of the General Hall of Baojiaxian doesn't accept horse disciples, so the fox is yellow, white, willow ash, and the top 5 Baojiaxian are the brothers, sisters, children, or spouses of the General Hall leader. In Lu Xian, Yuchen had practiced in the mountains for thousands of years and had never received any disciples who came out of horses. He had high seniority and strong abilities. At that time, many disciples who came out of horses wanted to invite Yuchen to come out of the mountain and sit at the entrance of the hall. Grandma is no exception. Grandma thinks that the fairy on her body is already Yuchen's spouse, so she can definitely invite Yuchen to enter her hall. On the one hand, the grandmother begged Grandma Lu San to talk to Yuchen about the matter, while on the other hand, she developed the hall. During the heyday of Tongko, with over 100 soldiers and horses, in the 3 provinces of northeast China, as long as one mentions her disciples, no one knows her. I was stunned and said, Grandma, you were so amazing when you were young. Grandma gave a bitter smile and said, Grandma also thinks she's very capable, so she unknowingly took on a job that other people wouldn't dare take on, but didn't want to do a business, which harmed the entire family. End of this chapter.